So welcome to all of you. Some of you are here live. Yay. You get to ask questions in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. And some of you are joining us watching it on YouTube. So I'm going to introduce Troy Love in a moment, but I want to tell you this is part of the Wednesday morning series. And starting January, we have Mary Franz, who does the trust solution. She wrote the book about that, and she'll be joining us the first week of the month. But we have lots of great things kicking off with 2022, including Troy Love, who is going to be doing this webinar today, is going to be doing a work group. We're going to launch it in February. I don't have all the information posted. I'm working on it, but we're going to be starting a work group based on the attachment wounds. So it will be an opportunity, like our other work groups, a 6-week course, 90 minutes a session. So you can find more information on seekingintegrity.com. Wait, on this one, on the seekingintegrity.com website. But we also have the Out of the Doghouse. I'm really happy that we've launched that work group that will be starting January 10th. And that is for men who have been caught cheating. You know, it is different than the Sex Addiction 101 or the Porn Addiction 101, both of which are also starting again in January. But these are work groups. So it's not therapy, it's not treatment, but it is an opportunity, as Dr. Rob has talked about, the psychoeducation that you don't get in regular therapy. It's more a component of treatment, but it's great information to supplement what you're doing. Take the information that you're gleaning to your therapist, et cetera. So, but among the many things that Troy does on the sexandrelationshiphealing.com site, see, I'm getting really good at this.
Yeah.
It is, he does this once a month, normally the fourth week of the month, but with December and the holidays, here we are at the 5th month, but he's wrapping up the year for us. How's that? But he also does a men's group every Friday, and he does a betrayed partner group alternating Thursdays, on this site. So check that out. The calendar, we try to keep that updated, but there's also the listing so you can find resources that are a fit for what you're looking for to support your healing, whether you're the addict or the betrayed partner. So lots of good stuff. So there, I've taken up a lot of time, but Troy, so glad to see you.
Good to see you too.
And Troy always has lots of information that he can talk about, but he really does welcome your questions. So at the bottom of the screen in the Q&A, you can type in questions. You can type them in as anonymous attendee or, who you are. If it would be helpful for us to know if you are the betrayed partner, if you are the person that's been struggling with, the compulsive behavior, let us know that. But anything about attachment wounds, addiction, healing, betrayal, he's your guy. He can fix it all. I'm just kidding. Nobody can fix us.
I don't know about that, but
yeah, exactly. No, I'm just kidding. But this is a journey. Like getting through the holidays. It's one of those things where it's challenging, and I like just having the ability to identify what's going on and, which wounds might be getting poked, open to joy and happiness and peace, but also going, that's real stuff. So.
Absolutely. Especially over the holidays. I'm sure that if you're like me, some of your wounds may have been bumped up against. It's pretty normal. And what tends to happen when our attachment wounds are bumped is it activates those core beliefs and those shadows of shame that can really, if we heed them, will hijack our ability to connect and have the experiences that we're really hoping for. So if that happened to you, that's pretty normal. It's always a fun and interesting time to have family together. So if you
probably really interesting this year because for a lot of people, they haven't been able to be together. So being together again may have had extra emotions attached to it, and
Right.
therefore more opportunities for, wounds getting poked.
Yeah, it's interesting that there was a story on NPR about American Christmas songs and how they're different than the rest of the world who celebrates Christmas as Christmas songs. And it sets the way that our pop Christmas songs are, it sets up this expectation about Christmas being this amazing, amazing day. And then when it comes, there, it lasts for a couple of hours as we're opening presents, and then it kind of is, and um, and that expectation is always kind of disappointing at the end. And the art of the story was all about how we kind of set ourselves up for that. We hype ourselves up, hoping that, hey, this year it's going to be different, rather than learning how to be happy and enjoy in the moment, every moment, and embracing every moment. That was a fascinating thing that I heard. So,
And I think it's one of those things too where we have unrealistic expectations. We perceive that everybody else is family because what we see on Facebook is like perfect, and so ours is a failure or whatever. So it's challenging. I was watching the Kelly Clarkson holiday special, and she actually had songs that were real. I appreciated that she was like, yeah, it's been a real struggle, and so it wasn't all happiness and perfection. And I was like, wow, how refreshing to have it be, these are real feelings at Christmas time. So
okay.
yeah, good stuff. So somebody put something in the chat. So questions in the Q&A, please, because it's way easier for me to read. It's bigger, but I'm going to pull my computer. Sorry. Recently found out my husband compulsive masturbating and foot fetish used sex workers to jerk off on their feet. Admitted that he is an addict, now in treatment. I am having triggers. My father was addicted. Oops, shoot. My father was an addict and lied all the time. How can I separate my father from my husband? That's a challenging one.
That's a beautiful question, though.
Hmm.
What's happening is there's wounds around, and I don't know your specific story, but there's wounds around what it was like to have an addict for a father. There's 12-step groups for adult children of alcoholics, for example, who have been raised in homes where they had a parent who was an addict. And so all the wounds could have been created during that time: loss, neglect, rejection, abandonment, betrayal, and abuse. And so it's fascinating to me that we all have wounds. We all have these wounds. And then out of all of the people in the universe, there's 8 billion humans on the planet. We find the one human who has a lot of the same attributes as our parent. And part of that, I think the psychology around that is we're hoping, even though we may not know that that is even happening at the time, we may not know that our partner has some of those similarities, especially with addiction as a betrayed partner. I mean, we have countless stories of betrayed partners who've been married for 30 years before they find out that their partner was struggling with an addiction. At the same time, there's this hope. I think I tell it the analogy of when we were kids on the playground and the game didn't go the way we wanted it to. We would yell redo. We want to do over, and we want a different outcome than the one that we had before. And so, although you may not have known about this, there was some energy around that you probably didn't pick up on. It's not your fault. I think it's the universe's way of trying to help us have another opportunity to heal the wounds. Your question is, how do we separate the two? And the very fact that you're asking the question is a start. How can I see my husband for my husband? And how can I see my father for my father? What do they have that is the same, and what do they have that are different? Part of what we do, I think, as humans, is we like to group things together in order to try and make sense of things. It's what we do. It's how our brains work, and there's nothing wrong with that. But being able to see the human in our husband, being able to see the human in our father, that's hard to do, especially at the beginning when you've just, it sounds like from your story that is just reopening old wounds, and you just found out about it. I'm really happy that he's in treatment. That makes me really happy, but it's opening wounds. So there's a lot of present pain going on for you. The fact that you can ask that question tells me that there's some amazing strength inside of you, and I just want to honor that. And part of that is asking yourself that question a lot. How can I not like put my, we call it in psychology terms, we call that transference. We're transferring the energy from one person in our life onto somebody else. And we then are reacting to that person because we haven't resolved the stuff that we needed to resolve with the last person. The fact that you got two addicts in your life mean that there's some work for you to do in order to be able to heal that. And the core thing that I focus a lot with attachment wounds is making sure that you're not getting wrapped up in the identity that there's something wrong with you, that you're powerless, there's nothing that you can do, or that this is your fault. And if you can connect with, you are enough, you matter, that you are worthy of love and belonging. And these people, these men in your life, they got some issues. I hope they really sort them out, that may be able to help you distance that a little bit.
So, see, people are throwing stuff in the chat. I'm gonna just tell you that I'm gonna focus on the Q&A. It's so any questions that you have, if you want a response to, if you would please put them in the Q&A, it would be so much appreciated. I can read these, so and follow them. So the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen should be there. Just type any questions in there, and we'll go through. And we're going to start with this one. So it says, betrayed partner here, 2 weeks since D-Day. I'm so sorry. Oh, right at the holidays too. I'm so sorry. At this point, I'm really angry, sad, and grieving so many things right now. That being said, I know that I can get more aggressive and sensitive to my communication than I typically would. Mid-conversation, my partner tends to turn the conversation towards how hurtful I'm being while I'm sharing my hurt around the betrayal, which I get super triggered by. I feel like I'm being manipulated into focusing on him. My missing message is definitely around importance and worth, but I'm also concerned that I'm doing damage, and I'm having trouble maintaining my anger. I shame spiral that I'm even entertaining conversation and healing with him. Am I crazy for not allowing him to shift the conversation to him? I feel cold. Any insight advice is appreciated around my anger, navigating that with him, and navigating my shame spiral. Oh, great question. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
You're not crazy. So let's just put that out there. Number one, you're not crazy. Number two, this is 2 weeks since you just found out. So this betrayal wound is fresh, and you are going to be angry. Anger comes from a sense that something has been taken from you without your permission, without your consent. And what's been taken? Safety, security, trust, sometimes depending on what the person has been doing, your health, like lots of things could have been taken without your permission. You didn't give consent to any of that. So of course you're angry. And I love that you're here. So we're really glad that you're here. So your anger is welcome and valid. And I also hear that you love him. So Rob Weiss and a lot of those who have followed the work that he does talks about prodependence, which is different than codependence. There's nothing wrong with loving your husband and wanting to support him, and also wanting to manage your stuff. So you're not crazy that you're angry. And I also can tell that you love the guy. One thing to know about addicts is that they don't have very much empathy. Because of their wounds that they may not even be aware of, that they've been using their addiction to numb for however many years they've been doing that, it's all been focused on them. That's what happens with these wounds. Is like, if you think about, if you got in a car accident or you had some major accident and you were in the hospital for a while, the nurses are taking care of you, they're coming in, they're giving you meds, you having food brought to you. A lot of the focus is on you as you're healing, right? So that's a normal thing that happens. When we're dealing with addiction, there's a whole lot of, it's all about me. And so they don't have a very, their capacity for empathy is pretty small in general. And
Like
so,
zero.
yes. So what happens is he's feeling shame because you are starting to say, hey, what you did really hurts me. It's really bumping up against my betrayal wound. I'm trying to figure out how to make sense of what we're going to do here. Here's some of what I need. And his shame is like, wait a minute, like you are being really, and he makes it all about him, which is a pattern that happens. If he's able to get into recovery, what happens is he begins to expand his capacity for empathy. But sad story is it can take a couple of years for that to happen. So bless the spouses who endure this with hope and love. I mean, it's amazing how many are willing to give their partners a second chance, because I know that it's hard. So so his capacity for empathy is really teeny, and if he's really working a program, his capacity for empathy will get better, and he will be able to, what we call, hold space for your anger. He may not be able to do that right now, and so you'll get in those conflicts, and then your shame will show up and say you're a horrible wife, you've lost your temper, you didn't behave the way you wanted, and you're not crazy. That's why we have a lot of the support groups for the betrayed partners here, so that you have some place to go where you don't feel like you're so alone. And it's scary, it's uncomfortable to talk about these kind of things, and we don't want to think that our spouse is crazy or disgusting or any of those things, and so we like to keep it under wraps. But it's really helpful if you can go to some of these support groups that we have for the betrayed partners, so that you know that you're not crazy, and that what you're feeling is absolutely valid, and that there is hope. And you'll learn some skills for you to be able to hold space for you, and you'll be able to have some boundaries as well. And you'll be able to say, here's what I can handle, and here's what I can't handle. And I'm really hoping you can take care of some of your own stuff, buddy. So
Yeah, and we talk often early on, you guys can't support each other. You are too angry and hurt and betrayed, and all of those are real. And and I'm using he and she, but it doesn't matter. There's female addicts, and it doesn't matter. So please, the pronouns are just for ease of conversation. So if he is getting help to learn to be different, and I mentioned a bit ago, we've got the work groups, out of the dog houses for men caught cheating. Yes, some of them do not identify it, as being a sex or porn addict. We have Sex Addiction 101 and Porn Addiction 101. They're work groups, and they help get a plan for how to do things differently. You having discovery is so painful, and everything is in chaos and raw, and so everybody's on hyper emotion. Him blame shifting that it's your fault that you're making him feel bad, that's on him, and you not buying into that is what I encourage. Troy talked about having healthy boundaries. What do you need for your safety? Many partners, if you haven't gone out and gotten an STD test, please get over any shame that you might feel about that. Take care of your health. You need information. So I encourage you to get the health testing that you need, for your bodies. But shame, and we talk about this a lot, and Troy, it's a useless emotion. It does not help us. That shame spiral, that's just sucking us down a drain. Guilt for an addict can be a motivating thing. I don't want to feel this way. I want to do things differently. But shame gets, for addicts in particular, it can be, oh, woe is me. I feel so bad for me. Again, as Troy pointed out, it's still all about me. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't change anything. So I hope that you join the Betrayed Partner. There's one today at 12:30 Pacific time. There's another one tomorrow morning at 8:30 Pacific time. There's multiple on this channel on sexandrelationshiphealing.com that you can participate in, all free. The podcast, I had somebody that wrote me an email. And if you're reaching out to me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, but they said they listen to the podcast like every day. They're listening to that, and it's supporting them. It's giving them a calm voice, and I think hope, that things can be different. All of these webinars are recorded. So, we've got hundreds and hundreds of hours of resources on sexandrelationshiphealing.com. I just want you to know too, the chat is blowing up. Like, I'm only going to answer questions in the questions. So I find the chat distracting. I struggle with it. I'm sure it's my ADHD. It is what it is. So, but anyway, the resources here, are really helpful and supportive. The anger, I can understand. I mean, I hear often from partners who are going like, I'm becoming this person I don't want to be, but you're in a crisis. So if you haven't already read Prodependence, Moving Beyond Codependency, there also is a podcast on that. You can listen to it, but it talks about that. You're in a crisis. The house is burning down. You're just trying to hang in there and do what you need to do, just to get through the day. That's okay. Give yourself grace. You're here. I'm so glad you are. So, okay. Next question. I was wondering, I have been on my self-healing journey with different kinds of methods, and I think I healed a lot from narcissistic abuse, betrayal, attachment wounds. But is there a test or something to see how much you have healed? Is this, it's really motivating, if I can see your own changes.
I don't know if there's a test per se. I can share what some of my clients have done. I offer several like different workshops and courses, and I offer a retreat in Prescott at the end of March, and I've had several clients go back again. And it's the same thing. We do the exact same thing. It's nothing really changed. But when they go back and they review the work that they did and then they do it again, they're able to see the progress. Another way to monitor that is journaling, and then going back and reading your journals from 6 months ago, reviewing work that you've already done and being able to say, hey, like, look, I have grown. Also being able to connect with other people and asking them, what have you seen that's different about me? And getting some actual feedback from people. Those are some of the ways to be able to do that. We have standardized tests that we use as therapists, like the Beck Depression Scale, where it takes like 30 seconds to be able to see where you are with your depression. I'm sure if you Google, like, there's a million psychology tests out there. You could take the test, whatever test you want, and then go back in 2 months and see if things have improved. That's how we monitor our client improvement, is are we seeing that there's an improvement going on? So there's lots of different ways of being able to do that. But oftentimes just self-reflection, reviewing what you've already done, looking at if your therapist or coach has given you homework before, go back and look at it and read what you've done before and see how much growth you've made, because I'm absolutely certain you have.
Yeah, and I think it's all those little pieces. I somehow, and I was thinking about this. I somehow got caught on the 2 years, and I notice I say often, 2 years ago I'm better than I was 2 years ago, but in 2 years I plan to still be able to look at that. I think for me, a lot of it is I know that I'm acting and reacting differently. I'm not just reacting. I have the ability to process and choose an action, and that is a gift. I think journaling is so critically important. I think that that's a great tool. There's lots of research on how that works and changes things, and I think you get insights in the moment. And then I think you can also have a plan for, okay, when I feel this way, when this wound is getting poked, how do I want to choose to act differently? And having the ability to choose, it is huge. I think look for the little victories. I think it's one of those, it isn't going to be, oh, everything is all better, all perfect now. But you go, okay, I am different. Before I would have done this, and now I'm choosing this. That's a huge, like there are so many of those that I just go, me not just reacting is massive growth, because I was like a, ping pong or pinball, and at everybody else's whim, and being able to have intention is huge. So, next question. I found out November 12th. When can I expect a formal disclosure? I want one soon. It, yeah, yes, I know you want one. You're looking for safety. It depends on what you want. If you just want the information, um, if you have no, let me back up. A formal disclosure is done with a to build a foundation of healing on which to build. It is not just about getting information. I want partners to have a formal disclosure with the proper with trained people who know what they're doing and can guide the process so partners are not more traumatized. It is, there's a the good trained therapist, there's a process. You also want to make sure, I'm using he and she, that he has stopped the acting out. Otherwise, you're going to be in the boat of, this is our fourth disclosure and it's painful. So if you are looking for the process to be one of healing and um, uh, helping move forward, then leaning into what both of your trained professionals are saying to set up the process to be successful would be, there's no like in 90 days or 30 days or whatever. It's really about benchmarks. Has he prepared his, is he able to be truthful? Has he prepared a timeline? Is that timeline being pulled into the information with the qualified professional? Do you have support from your qualified professional? Is there a plan? What is the safety plan for, when you come and go from the therapist's office? All of those are factors. It isn't just about, I need to know this, because, all the questions that you think you have, you'll have 150 more questions if this isn't done well. So I hope that you are willing to lean into the process and lean into your qualified professionals so that this is painful stuff, that you have the best experience possible, through the painful stuff. So, Troy, what are your thoughts?
Everything you said, yeah. One of the things that I do when I'm working with a client who's getting ready to do a full disclosure, I do let him know that it takes about 4 months at least to do a really good one. So that kind of gives you a time frame. But what I do encourage the partner and the addict to do is set a date so that you at least know like when it is going to be. And I will strongly encourage the client not to set himself up for failure and set it up too soon, because the last thing you need is to have him like change the date. That may happen sometimes, but we try really hard not to do that because it's crappy. But you knowing that this date is coming is helpful. I think for a lot of people are like, okay, I want all the answers right now. Of course I want all the answers right now, but I understand there is a process, but I also know that there is a date. The other part that does for the person doing the full disclosure is there's a deadline. And so they don't procrastinate. I mean, they might, but they're less likely to procrastinate because they know that this date is coming, and they know that if they drop the ball, it's going to be devastating for the relationship. So I encourage them to be wise in setting the date, but having a date so that you know, and then having you working with a therapist who's been trained on how to do the full disclosure so that you're ready to hear it. Your partner's working with someone on how to do it so that you're ready to hear it, so that that you're getting prepared, because if it's done well, it can be life-changingly, beautifully altering in the relationship. If it's done poorly, it can destroy everything. So we want to do it right the first time, not mess it up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I hear about the people that were ill prepared, that there wasn't really a plan, that things were withheld, or forgotten, and I'm not making a pass for the addict, but like too early, they haven't even pulled all the information together, and so there's gaps that are real, and even if they're not specifically lying, they've forgotten, and so giving them the space to really work with a qualified therapist who can hold them accountable, so the procrastinating isn't, they're every week they're working on some component of getting prepared for this, but really having the betrayed partner have a qualified professional so that there is a plan for both of you to have this, as Troy said, be as successful as possible. At the end, that's how relationships can heal. Okay, next question. My SA husband, 2 years, whose recovery seems to be falling apart, has stopped taking his psychiatric meds. Oh, and just asserted that he needs to set boundaries with me, which seems to mean I'm not allowed to do things. I feel like he is exploiting recovery language to demand control back. Suggestions on dealing with the gaslighting, blame shifting, and lack of empathy. It feels like another betrayal wound after he has much more conciliatory and empathetic for a long while after D-Day.
So you've identified that there's some things that are happening. The trajectory of his recovery has been shifting. And so I don't know what you all had agreed upon as far as what boundaries look like for you, as far as I don't know, like the boundaries of like, hey, we're going to keep working on this, but here's what I need to see in order to be able to continue working on that. I don't know what those agreements were or were not with you and your partner. But it sounds like the trajectory of things has shifted and it doesn't feel good. Like something is coming up for you, and those spidey senses are saying this does not feel good. I'm fine. I'm afraid that I'm going to fall back into some of those old patterns of gaslighting and all of those things. That's when you go connect with your support group, the betrayed partners that maybe you have connections with. I want you to work really hard in remembering that you are enough and that you are worthy of having a relationship that is trustworthy. You're worthy of love and you're worthy of respect and dignity. And if that isn't happening, you have the ability and the right to be able to have some boundaries around that. What you do with that, it's not my place to say. You get to choose how that, but to not, it's easy for all of us to get caught right back in some of those own old patterns and letting those shadows of shame show up and give us messages of like saying, you know, it's our fault, or and we get convinced by them because they're old and we've been hearing them since we're like 8. And being able to say no, like, look, I'm worthy of love and this isn't okay. What's happening right now isn't okay and something needs to be done. So to be able to honor that feeling, because I'm hearing like it doesn't feel good, and to honor that and then find some support, uh, seek some support for you with professionals, support groups, those kind of things for you, because he may, especially if he's not taking his meds, that may drastically change the reality of the situation, and that will be can be potentially be really scary for you. So do your self-care and remember that you are worthy of love and belonging, and take care of what you need to do to keep your ground stable, even if he's not.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've dealt with clients who have stopped taking their meds. That one always scares me. Some of those meds, like, you know, you need to be tapered off, and stopping cold turkey can be really problematic. And so I worry from a psychiatric standpoint, you know, about his capacity. I don't know if there's an opportunity, you know, in the in between to say, I'm really worried about you. I care about you. You know, we were doing it, if there's the ability for him to take that in. You know, I mean, that one makes it extra challenging, because I mean, addiction is hard enough when there's the psychiatric aspects as well, and someone stops taking their meds. You know, that so safe boundaries for you, and, you know, not buying into the gaslighting, you know, shift back. You know, I hear what you're saying. Somebody said the other day, you know, I hear that is your reality. I hear what you're saying. That is, you know, your reality does not meet my reality. Enough said, you know, and just holding your boundary. But tough stuff. Next question. I'm the addict. My wife found out about my porn addiction, compulsive masturbation, and compulsive fantasizing about a month into our marriage. D-Day was 2.5 months ago. I'm in recovery and working hard at it for myself and for her, because I love her. My wife keeps bringing up when she shares how she's feeling. I don't empathize and I barely say anything, and she doesn't feel any better after talking to me. I want to be there for her, and I do want and do what I can to help her feel better. I'm learning and getting better, but I feel like I need more time. Every talk we have about this results in her getting extremely upset and sad, and I feel guilty and ashamed and shut down. How can I show her, or show I'm safe to talk to? I know what to do with my recovery, but I'm struggling with what to do with our relationship.
Dude, I'm really proud of you, first of all. So, and thanks for being here today and asking a really great question. So there's a couple of tools that I can share with you that you can use. The first is one that you'll hear a lot, maybe in therapy, and then the second is a hack of the first. So the first is just simply saying whatever she's saying. You say, so what I heard you say was, and you repeat back what she says. And it's really okay if you even do it verbatim at the beginning. It sounds like it would be really annoying, but it's not. If you are able to put it in your own words, that's great too. But if you're not, that's fine. A buddy of mine who was in recovery, when he finally was able to master this skill, it shifted the relationship with his wife significantly. Because honestly, none of us are really good at this. Men, women, we all women are a little bit better at empathizing in general, but most of us are not that great at it. That's why we have a million communication books out there. So, but when he finally was able to start saying, so honey, what I heard you say was, okay, and so what I heard you say was, and so what I heard you say was, and she's like, yes. And what we're going for is the yes. Yes, that's what I said. That is huge because the person feels heard. A little kind of anecdotal story. When I was being an intern getting my master's degree in Pittsburgh, I was in a drug and alcohol rehab outpatient program. And one day I had this redneck cowboy guy, farmer guy sitting on one side of me, and a woman who had just come out as a lesbian on the other side. And they were not friendly to each other. And they started to like fight in the middle. And my mentor was gone out of the room. And they started to fight. And I'm like, so what I heard you say was, and what I heard you say was, and then it would de-escalate. And then they would escalate it again. And I'm like, what in the heck? So what I heard you say was, and what I heard you, and it would de-escalate. And then they escalated again. And then I heard laughing in the door, and my mentor had set them up, had told them to do that to see what would happen. But what I learned from that was the power of what I heard you say was de-escalating. And so afterwards I like, oh my gosh, we didn't know what to do because you completely de-escalated the whole thing just by saying what I heard you say was, and so that we had to like try it again. And it's just, I laughed so hard, but that is a really simple thing. Just, honey, so what I heard you say was, and how did that make you feel? And what I heard you say was, and how did that make you feel? Those two things you can try. Okay. I always Chris Voss is he was an FBI hostage negotiator, and you can go Google him and listen to some of the stuff. He's hacked this a little bit. And instead of saying, so what I heard you say is, you just repeat the last 3 words that she said, or 3 significant words that she said. Now, and so she's like, I'm really, really frustrated because like, I just feel like you don't listen to me, and I get so angry because I want you to, I just feel like I'm not heard, and I just feel like you don't care about me. You feel like I don't care about you? Yes, because I try to talk and you don't. And that hack also does wonders for that. Now, as you practice that, it will also help you increase your ability to be empathic, because as you're doing that, if you can be present and not let your mind like wander, you can start to ask yourself, well, how would I feel if that were me? How would I feel if that were me? And if you can start to do that, that's what empathy is. And then what you do is you tap into your own sense of, well, how would I feel if that were me? I would feel angry, I'd feel upset. And then instead of making it about you, you just say, so does that make you upset? Like, does that make you like your tummy want to like clench up and your hands get all sweaty? And what you're basically doing is describing what you do when you get upset. And she'd say, no, or she'd say, yes. If she says, no, I get like all sick and pale. So what I heard you say is you get all sick and pale. Yes. Or yes, that's exactly what it is. I get all hot and sweaty, and there's connection. So you're early on in this thing because it's 2.5 months ago, but the fact that you're asking this question is huge. And those are 2 simple ways of being able to help her feel heard. And the more that she feels heard, the more her energy will de-escalate because she feels heard. And then the more you will be able to share and connect with her in maybe ways that neither of you have been able to experience in the past. So try it out. I'd love to hear how that goes.
Well, these relationship hacks are great for any relationship. This isn't, I mean, this, you are asking about a specific relationship, but this is useful stuff for learning to connect with other people. So if you're a betrayed partner going, well, I'm going to listen. If he says, what I heard you say was, you're going to know, understand he's trying. Like this is a good thing. This is, I said earlier, zero empathy. It's like no skills. It isn't even that addicts don't want to have it. It's just that don't have the skills. So you have to learn with baby steps, and clearly, and other people have shared this too. It's uncomfortable and foreign territory, and we don't know what to do. So how do we learn to hold the discomfort and not make things worse? And so Troy is giving, here's how to not make things worse. Here's how it might even go better. So, but yeah, the 2.5 months, like this is really early. And as I said earlier, also, you guys cannot be the sole support. You can, like, navigating how we talk about this. I think it's really important. We also often share having time to talk about our relationship. So it's contained time. You can call your sponsor before, you can call your sponsor after. You can have a plan for it, so it isn't just 24/7 something coming at you. Journaling is really good. So then it's journal, like a betrayed partner. If you journal and go, okay, this is what I really care about, like it was in all this other stuff, but what I really care about is this. Well, that's useful too. So, but I wanted to share, I hope your wife is leaning into the betrayed partner resources, so has support from other betrayed partners, because her having support, you doing your recovery work, and I mean doing the recovery work, it isn't just about, I'm glad you're here, but it's every day doing what you need to do on a daily basis for your recovery. You start to change, and then she's got support, and then when you're coming together, it isn't as volatile, but when it is, you have a plan. And we've talked on other webinars and things. So if you haven't seen them, check those out. But we talk about, okay, being able to take a time out, but then come back, but having a plan for all of those things, so that you're seeing that things are getting better. Okay, we made it through that really challenging discussion and we're both still standing. Okay, we can do this and we can do it better and differently or whatever. But that you really care about continuing to navigate the relationship is I see that both of you are still engaged in the relationship. So that's good. Okay. It was mentioned earlier in the meeting that early on in the process, partners can't support one another. How do you recommend partners navigate that? I'm moving out, not speaking recommended. Does coming back together only happen in the presence of professionals?
So I think partners can support each other. So if that was what we said, I didn't mean it like that. I think you can, but there's things that need to be put in place to be able to help not get all messy. They talk in the 12 steps about keeping on your side of the street or keeping your side of the street clean. So there's things that you do, boundaries and stuff like that. But I think, like, why would you stay in a relationship if you're not going to support each other? So I think you can do that. Sometimes having a separation, a therapeutic separation for some couples is helpful. Sometimes it's not. So every situation is a little bit different. Can people come back together without the help of a professional? Yeah. Lots of people can do a lot of this work by going to 12 steps and getting a sponsor and doing those kind of things. They can. Professionals have just been around the block a couple of times and they've seen what works and doesn't work. And so it may make the process a little bit more smooth. It may make you, it's kind of like, as I was reading your question, it's like, if I have a toothache, I could pull the tooth out by myself. Like I could get or I could go to a dentist and he could numb it up, or she, no offense to the female dentists out there, and they could like do something that I can't do for myself. And it would make it a whole lot easier than me trying to like deal with the toothache myself. So you make sure you find a good one. There's some not so great professionals out there, but also not, what I think what we mean is that make sure you also have some support besides the two of you. Uh, he's going to need support. She's going to need support so that we don't feel so alone in this process. And so the more help we can get, the better, whether that's support groups, 12-step meetings, professionals, people at church, your neighbor across the street, family, friends, the more that we can get people who love and are able to honor us, the better it will be, I think.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be everybody knows about what's going on. It's just like, I'm struggling. I need to have a cup of coffee and not talk about, the family situation. Great, uh, but I'm glad Troy. I mean, you guys can't be each other's soul support. Yes, you want to be supportive of each other, but unfortunately, you two are the two that are affected by the betrayal. So there is anger and intensity and betrayal and guilt and shame and all of this emotional soup. And so having the ability for an addict to learn from other addicts of how to do life differently, for partners to go, I'm not alone. There are other people, and they've been courageous and found a path through it, and it isn't all perfect, but we're finding a path that is I think really meaningful. I worry when people say, I'm moving out and there isn't a plan. How would you ever know when to move back together again if you choose to do that? What is the plan? And having no contact, how do you know if the addict is changing if you don't have any contact? So I think having Troy used therapeutic separation. Well, that it's called therapeutic separation because there's a plan for it. This is what it is, and here's benchmarks. This is what we're looking for in order for there to be progress, to be able to move forward. There's so many aspects of it. It is concerning to me when somebody's been separated for a couple of years, and they're kind of in the in between. There's no real plan for this is how we're going to get back together, or completely divorce, or whatever, completely separate. So you're kind of stuck. So I think whatever you do, whether it's with a professional, I agree, I don't want to pull my own teeth, working with somebody who knows what they're doing and can support each of you and have a plan about how we do this. And is texting okay? Are there kids involved? Like, if there's kids involved, you have to have the communication, but it's really, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the possibility of reuniting or not? So next question. I'm going to a pre-planned vacation out of the country with my husband Saturday. I asked him 2 weeks ago to get a blood STD test. He said he would, and of course has not, as I expected. Now he says when he gets back, note taken by me, he is still not keeping his word or my boundary needed, and I am so angry and hurt. He told me he has no plan to have sex with me because he is trying to retrain his brain and stay sober. Any ideas on how to have intimacy on the vacation now that I will not have intercourse? Well, intimacy and intercourse are, lots of sex addicts have sex and it's not intimate. So intimacy, the into me you see is, I think, really key to that. But, this is complicated. Troy, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is, who else can you take with you on vacation?
Yeah. And you
I
can go
don't.
get an STD test. I would go get one myself.
There is a lot of stuff, but you already said note taken. He's still not keeping his word or respecting your boundaries. Of course, you're angry and hurt. And I don't know how long this planned vacation has been. That sounds really sad. That you've been planning this. It was going to be fun together, and now the trust is just not there. So that requires some tough soul searching, honestly, and I honestly can't tell you what to do. Uh, but you nailed it because you don't trust him. He's not behaving in a way that trusts. And so part of it is like, so why would you want to go on a vacation with somebody that you don't trust who's not respecting your boundaries? So I can't tell you what to do. As far as intimacy, you can't have intimacy without trust. So that's the big deal here. He's not behaving in a way that's inspiring trust or building credibility. So it's probably not going to have the intimacy that you're wanting, which obviously is angering. So the question for you is, what do you want to do with your betrayal wound, and how can you support you in this pain, and and know that you are enough, even though he may be not behaving in a way that's demonstrating that.
And I'm going to encourage you to go get an STD test. Take care of you. He's not willing to take care of himself or you. You go get an STD test for you so that you have that information. I think that that's critically important for you to take care of your health. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Yeah, I if you go together, I really hope that you make sure that you hold your boundary on, what activities, that you want to do together and what you need to do separately so that you enjoy the trip, if you choose to go. So I'm the betrayer. Going back to your mirroring suggestion, I also have ADD, and that dang squirrel keeps crossing my path, and I lose track of my wife's statements. Any thoughts on taking notes during check-in or discussion so I can accurately mirror?
So one of the things that, like, if I were interacting with you together, I would shorten the statements being made by your spouse. Like, we do tend to go on and on. So you can say, hey, like, my ADHD brain like wanders a lot. So could we shorten them a little bit so I can stay on track a little bit more? That may be helpful for you. You may also want to go take a look at what you can do to improve your ADHD brain, because there's lots of things that can be done besides meds that can help with that. But oftentimes they'll go on, and then you're like, oh crap. So asking her to condense it, say, give me like a sentence or two, let me respond, and then give me a couple of more, and then let me respond. That may help.
Yeah, I think owning that, but the 3 words, I bet you can hang on to the last 3 words, if you just go, I only have to do 3 words. I bet you can do that. So maybe that's the place to start with the 3-word hack,
Yep.
Okay, next question. I feel betrayed, then ditched. It's unfair. None of this is fair. This is always unfair. This whole that you're here as a betrayed partner is unfair. So, my partner is in denial. He is a porn addict. His ex is a friend. However, she disapproved of him with me. I felt I was being disrespected. So, what do I do when my partner felt there was nothing wrong with what he was doing, visiting porn sites, talking to his ex who was not over him, and disapproved of me, and it was me doing it to myself and insulted me? He blamed me for his discontent. In addition, he is a meth addict and refused to talk or connect emotionally. He broke up with me to avoid me.
So he's not taking responsibility. What we want to do, I'm going by what you say. So obviously I don't know this person, but what we tend to do sometimes is, because we care about this person, we want them to get better. We try to help them understand, like, hey, this is what's going on. We want them to take ownership, and they don't. And then we keep trying, and they don't. And we keep trying, and they don't. At some point, you have to take a look in the mirror and say, what am I going to do about me? I've been trying to help this person change for them, well, what am I going to do about me? And that's what the principles of prodependence are all about. Of course, you love them, you want to help them, but also what am I going to do to make sure that I'm in the healthiest place that I can be? I can support, but I also have to have some boundaries around that.
She adds, is it possible to have a relationship with a meth addict partner in denial and capable of dealing with emotions, or is there brain damage for coping skills, emotions, etc.?
It's possible if they own their stuff and they start doing recovery. And yes, meth can do some significant damage to the brain. Yeah, it can. Um, at the same time, it is possible to improve if they own and take responsibility for their behavior and do what they need to do for recovery. If they're not, and if they're in denial, I don't see that that's going to happen.
Yeah, and she adds he refuses and he's in denial. I mean, at some point, how much energy are you willing to um, to devote to someone who is in active addiction? Meth is deadly. I mean, so many people die. We're gonna have to stop taking. I'm gonna take care of one more question but we're already past time. But meth is deadly for so many people, and he's already a porn addict, meth addict, hanging out with his ex, doing all of this type of thing. So here's what I think: you deserve better. You deserve someone who is going to be a real partner to you. So what can you do to set healthy boundaries for you that will bring give you the ability to be connected to someone who really cares, who isn't cheating on you? So I would invite you to look at, you deserve better than you're getting in that particular relationship. So last question. My ex-husband is a drug addict and is not identified as SA, but has acted out sexually many times over the years. The first experience 14 years ago, I found him exchanging pictures and arranging to meet up with a man on Craigslist. Recently, my D-Day found he's been meeting up with transgender sex workers. I'm so confused and angry that he has led a double life for 25 years and he claims to be straight. How can I reconcile my confusion with the whys and stop ruminating? I feel in hyper research mode trying to understand why he did this to me.
So the last part of your question is, why did he do this to you? I know that because this is the betrayal wound. Absolutely. Uh, it's going to sound harsh, but he's not doing it to you. That's what it feels like. He's been doing it to himself because of his own wounds. But it's my wife shared that what it was like when she was dealing with me in my active addiction. She understood that I was wounded, that I had been hit with a poisoned arrow with all the crap that had happened to me in my life. But what happened is that poisoned arrow like went through me and then went through her too. And so it had an absolutely devastating effect on her life just as much as it did on mine. But I honestly, when I was struggling with my addiction, uh, I wasn't trying to do anything to her. So that's the part of that as a betrayal, it feels that way though. So I want to honor that it feels that way. You're dealing with some really complex stuff as you're finding out that he's been sleeping with people of the same gender and all those like in transgender, like those are some really complex things that he probably cannot answer, like why he's doing those for you. And he may be in denial about his sexuality. He may not be in denial about his sexuality. There are a lot of straight guys that have sex with other men who absolutely are not gay. So that's very complex. And I'm hoping that he has a therapist who understands and specializes in that kind of stuff, because he's right now, especially if this is brand new, that you're finding this out, he may not be able to explain it to you. And so you're left really trying to rack your head or like, what in the heck is going on here? And doesn't make any sense. And I want to honor that it's very confusing. And you're trying to wrap your head around, what does this mean for me? If he is attracted to men, what does that mean for me as a woman? Where do I fit in this puzzle? These are very complex issues that can leave you very hurt and lonely and scared. And so the wound is profoundly huge. And I want you to know that. And I honor that. And I have so much compassion for the pain that you are going through. My hope is that maybe you can also find someone who can walk you through this, and that you can separate you can connect with your truth, that you are enough, that you are beautiful and amazing and magnificent and powerful and spectacular, and set it apart from what he's been doing for the last however long he's been doing that. That really is a reflection on what has been going on with him, his wounds, his trauma, and doesn't say a dang thing about who you are as a human, because you are amazing and beautiful. And I'm so sad that you're going through this. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
We're going to end there. Thank you all. Thank you, Troy. We'll see you in the new year. So watch the calendar on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, work groups on seekingintegrity.com, all starting in January. There's room in, and right now there's room in all of them. So, limited room in certain ones. So keep coming back. Betrayed Partner Group yet this afternoon, another one tomorrow morning, men's groups, including Troy's on Friday. So thanks everyone. Thanks, Troy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.